Well, they've become two of the hottest topics this election season, immigration and the larger role of the presidency itself. Tomorrow, the U.S. Supreme Court will hold oral arguments into whether President Obama overstepped his constitutional authority at issue. A pair of executive orders that would block more than 4 million immigrants from being deported. Texas is one of 26 states opposing these deferred action policies. And joining us now live, the state's Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Great to have you with us today, General.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, so the administration says these are legal actions the president has taken. He has discretion in this case. Why not?
This is not prosecutorial discretion. This is taking law and changing it to a completely different situation. This is something Congress passed. He made 4 million people that were here unlawfully suddenly lawful, and in doing that gave them Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, Social Security, and other benefits that he's not authorized to do. That should have been done with a vote of Congress. Well,
and I know that part of the argument many of the states have is that there is a financial burden that comes with this that's now on the backs of the states. How much do you think that would factor into the arguments?
Well, it factors in from the standing. We had to show that we would suffer irreparable harm, and we showed that at the district court by demonstrating that it would cost Texas millions of dollars to issue these driver's licenses. And that was done without a vote of Congress. It was done without a vote of our legislature. That's our argument that we've suffered harm.
All right, speaking of members of the legislature, we want to play a little bit from Senator Tim Kaine. He met with one of the families that he says will be impacted by this, and he says, of course, he is supporting what the president has done. Here's a bit of what he said.
I think that's what's going to carry the day in the Supreme Court, that this is not out of character with what other presidents have done. But I hope that it will be additional impetus, along with the results of the election, to get us to a place where in Congress we can do the reform.
There that he's talking about the fact that it is Congress that needs to be doing the reform here, but you could infer from what he's saying as well is the position we've heard from the administration is that Congress didn't act. So the president really had no choice but to do this.
It's nice to say that, but the Constitution doesn't give the president the authority to do that. And so this is a constitutional issue, separation of powers. It's always been Congress that controls what legislation is passed. He has no statutory authority or authorization under the Constitution to make law. He has to enforce it. That's his job.
Well, not long ago, a couple years back, the court had a big decision regarding SB 1070 in Arizona, where they'd passed some of their own immigration enforcement policies and laws there. In a 5-3 decision, it was authored by Justice Kennedy, who, of course, remains on the court and is often the swing vote. I want to read a little bit of what he said there. He said, a principal feature of the removal system, which is what's at issue here, is the broad discretion exercised by immigration officials. Federal officials, as an initial matter, must decide whether it makes sense to pursue removal at all. How hard are you going to have to work to get his vote, do you think, in this case?
You know, I'm pretty confident that we will, because that case also stood for the proposition that it's Congress that has the exclusive authority to set immigration policy. And the president himself, for 6 years, said that he didn't have the authority to change immigration law. He said, I'm not the king. This is a democracy. We have a process for this. And then the day that he came out with this executive action, he said, I just changed the law. So his own words speak against what he's done.
What does it say to you that the Supreme Court, after accepting this case, actually asked the parties to brief a question about whether the president has violated his constitutional duty to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed? There's a very specific request from the court.
We were encouraged by that. That was actually one of our initial complaints in the case at the district court level. That was not discussed at the district court level or at the Fifth Circuit. It was one that we initially introduced, and so we're actually excited that the court's going to look at that issue, because we think it is fundamental to our case and fundamental to the continuing following of the Constitution by the president.
And just to remind folks, obviously we are down a justice. If you end up with a tie case, and any of these cases currently pending without Justice Scalia and without that seat being filled, you revert to the lower court decision. So in this case, what will that mean?
So the Fifth Circuit, as well as the district court, ruled in our favor. And so if it's a 4-4 tie, obviously we were hoping for a unanimous decision, but if it's a 4-4 tie, then we will win that case.
Well, the administration sounds very confident going into it, so we will hear the arguments tomorrow. We'll see you over there.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, General.